Hello and welcome back to El Partido, yet another Spanish football podcast. But as always, with a nostalgic twist. And what a nostalgic twist we have had this week, Paul. We've had some great news. But first of all, how are you?
I'm doing great, Nick. I'm doing great. Fabulous news, actually. We're still waiting on final confirmation, but so far the signs are very good, very much up our street. Kudos to La Liga if and when this finally gets confirmed.
Absolutely. And if you are wondering, guys, what are you talking about? This is all very mysterious from you. We are obviously talking about this rumoured announcement that La Liga, across both divisions, both the Primera and the Segunda, are announcing all 42 clubs are going to participate in a retro football weekend. And, this isn't just about retro shirts. This is about using 80s style balls. Apparently the TV is going to be filmed in such a way that the grain is going to be reminiscent of the 80s and 90s. There's going to be proper, old school analog, kind of like analog / digital scoreboards rather than the screens that are going on there. It sounds, as you said, Paul, right up our street, doesn't it? And something that we, like I say, it's still rumoured. There's been a few in little bits out there that have said, yeah, we're doing this, by the way, but it might not be to do with that weekend, or we're releasing this shirt on the 19th of March. It might not be to do with anything, but it feels like, you know what, if this isn't true, La Liga, someone in the Liga is running around right now going, fucking let's make this work because this sounds like a gold mine.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what, as a concept, I think it's fantastic. I think it's something that will resonate really well with people. I mean, it's only a few episodes ago. We were chatting. We had Luke from Kit Launch on, didn't we? And we were talking about style and culture within match going football fandom in Spain, where the way that they tend to dress using shirts that are from their favourite era rather than in other countries where, if you go to a game in the Premier League where it's people are just wearing whatever the latest Nike shirt is of that club. I think in Spain we talked about how retro and vintage shirts are have never really gone out of fashion, and I think it's great for the aesthetics and for people like us who talk about when football was perhaps better. It definitely was better. This is great to see. The only thing I will say that would make this a bit of a bit of caution we should take into this is just how much it is going to cost us in merchandise, because we are going to probably purchase several shirts, aren't we, that we would otherwise have saved the money and used on something more what some other people might think is more useful.
Yeah, I think I would 100% agree on that. And yeah, like even now, currently wearing, if you're not watching on YouTube, a 2000 Valencia shirt. Wish I had Pablo Aimar on the back of it, but not quite. And up behind me, a retro Malaga one as well. And this is the thing, as you've just mentioned about Spanish football, they do really embrace, the retro, the nostalgia of their football, both in terms of shirts and other stuff as well. You look at the Legends games, and they're always littered with La Liga stars, not just obviously Premier League stars as well. And again, going back to the embracing of the retro, it's not the first time that Spanish football clubs are going to be releasing retro shirts. We're now in an era where, irregardless of who, Real Betis are really good at releasing retro kits. They've done a couple where they've had the golden accents and they've replayed sort of like the Kappa kits. Deportivo La Coruña's kits this season are based on the kits from 1997, the Rivaldo shirt with the sort of like arched Umbro kit. Racing Club de Santander absolutely smashing it with the nostalgic kits in it. They've got a brilliant collaboration with the Italian manufacturer Pompei, and I think they're up to about 6 shirts now where they've taken inspiration from the 80s and the 90s and released, sort of like a one-off special, and every single one of them has been an absolute hit. So it is a gold mine, isn't it?
Yeah, and do you know what I think as well, that we shouldn't underappreciate here is that there's a few reasons that we can get into as to why retro shirts are so popular. So we'll get the boring answer out of the way with first, which is, and I've spoken about this before, I think it was on a Q&A episode or a Patreon exclusive. So if you've not heard it, then you need to go somewhere else and sign up, and then you'll be able to know what I'm on about. But I'll give you a bit of a free one here. But about how nostalgia is on the rise in contemporary culture and society, whether it's football nostalgia or general sort of, it bleeds into, and I'm sorry to try and take this down a peg, and like I say, this is why we're getting the boring answer out of the way with. It does bleed into this whole nationalism shift that we're seeing, because and it is predominantly, we are apolitical as a podcast, obviously, but it is it is predominantly the far right that are trying to use or capitalize on this nostalgia hook that seems to be on the rise. El Partido does not subscribe to that or condone it at all. We're in it organically because we miss football being better. Anyway, all I'd say is I'd recommend anybody who is wondering what the hell I'm talking about and thinks I'm rambling is to maybe if they just go and follow Dr. Louise Munch on Instagram, who is I think she's on pretty much every platform, but that's where I follow. She's a lecturer at a university and does a good I don't know, like 3 or 4 minute long explainer, much more eloquently than I can, about football nostalgia and why it hits notes, but more generally why nostalgia is so popular. And it's because we're in a time where essentially people are short of cash. Life's becoming a little bit more difficult at the moment than it was previously. There's a lot of sadness going around. There's a lot of anger in the world and a lot of nasty things. We've got conflict raging. We've got unfortunate bits of domestic violence, or if you look at the news or open a news app on your phone, wherever you are, it's there's always something negative at the moment, and we need something to remind us of the better times, to quote Chumbawamba.
So nostalgia that.
Yeah. Nostalgia does that. It makes you reminisce of when times were perhaps better, and so that's why it's on the rise. However, that's the boring answer. The better answer is look at the kits from years gone by and look at the kits from now. They were just miles better because there was craftsmanship, there was individuality, genuine thought went into them kits. Now, if you've got Nike, you just get a template and they change the colour depending on what club they're making that kit for, and they just stitch a different badge on. Same with
the Adidas one.
Adidas.
We're an elite partner, so the elite partners get that's kind of their own designs, but it's reserved for is it about 9 clubs, sort of like your Real Madrid, and I just hate that terminology of it, where it's we're an elite partner. Sorry, is my money not good if I'm a Blackpool fan and I want to buy an Adidas shirt, or Blackpool would have an Adidas kit? I've got to have some crap template. No, I want individuality, like you say, Paul. And it's not a lot to ask for, is it?
No, not at all. And you think about it, every kit from the 90s and the early 2000s in particular was done with that club in mind by a particular designer. Now, I know somebody might be harping up there saying, well, Umbro used to do the templated thing. Look at, Nottingham Forest, Chelsea and Manchester City around about 95. Their away kits and home kits were just the same but different colours. That was just for the away kits. The home kits were always bespoke. Same, look, the shirt you're wearing there, there's craftsmanship in that. The Malaga shirt over your shoulder, those people who are not seeing us and they're just listening to us on Audible platforms, it is a yellow and blue striped one, which I think we've shared a picture recently on our social media as well. It's a classic Malaga one. Kelme shirt, definitely got a mention in the Kelme episode.
It did, yeah.
I think you were wearing
Massive
it when we
favourite of mine.
recorded that one, actually.
It's one of my favourite shirts
and
ever.
there's something unique to that, and we don't get that anymore. Now we just get identikits. So obviously we want the retro kits, don't we?
Absolutely. And to bring the tangent full circle as well, Paul, you'll have this with your children as well. My daughter asked me over the dinner table 2 days ago, what was it like in the 90s? And I was like, it was great. I cannot lie to you, Ruby. It's so much better than it is now. And then I think we went down a bit of a wormhole, me and my wife, Rebecca, listening to adverts from the 90s. Like, do you remember the Toys R Us advert at Christmas?
Yes.
You know, that
and I remember the jingle from the Toys R
headbeams.
Us advert. Yeah. Do you know?
Safe Style UK. I have to think to myself, what is that guy doing now? The guy who's on the Safe Style UK adverts. What is he doing with himself now? Because you buy one, you get one free. And one for us as Lancastrians and Northwest dwellers, Charnock Ridge Cycles. That was the one for me.
I need to stop you there because we have to, or I have to remind myself that this is a football-based podcast, and I could talk to you forever now about adverts that were from yesteryear that I still remember because they were just better. Like, obviously, it's pretty obvious that to anybody who's listened to a few of these episodes that obviously I'm Mancunian and I'm very proud of that. But if you're not familiar with Manchester, particularly in the pre-millennium, Boddington's Brewery used to be in the centre of Manchester, right next to Strangeways Prison. And Boddington's as a drink used to be considered the tagline was like the cream of Manchester. And those adverts with what was her name now? It's not Melanie Sykes, but she's got. Is it? No, it's.
I think it might be Melanie Sykes. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. She's like, you're a flake in that, love. And that was just. There was them. There was the. I mean, for the
Reebok advert with Belly's gonna get you.
Belly's gonna get you. Yeah. For the global listener, it was like the McDonald's, not the Coca-Cola Christmas advert. Everybody knew it. These are all ones from. Yeah.
The last one I'll mention is I tell you what, and I can fully understand why Carling sold so much beer during the 90s and early 90s because the adverts were amazing. And I'm not going to go into specifics, but they were very, very good at advertising. Bit beer, great marketing department. That's what I'm going to say for Carling.
To be fair, they have gone full circle as well, aren't they? Because Madrid's basically the same stuff, but it's much more better marketed than Carling. It's probably from the same barrel, isn't it? Both from Burton on Trent. And yeah, I wouldn't drink either. I mean, yeah, but that's right. Let's move back on topic
here. Yes, let's do that, because what we wanted to do with this podcast especially was to sort of just build up that excitement, get the momentum. There's a lot of suspense about this retro weekend, and I think we really want to sort of talk about what we'd like to see. And we put a tweet out on Twitter, and we put the Instagram post, and we did a video on TikTok and all that jazz, talking about some of the kit concepts that we made from what we think were our favorite shirts from each club across the entire 42, let's not forget, and which ones we'd really like to see come back. So we're going to talk about, if you want to go and see the designs that were sort of suggested, head over to our social media page. We'll be able to see them there on a carousel or on our thread. But for me, it's sort of like taking the inspiration from the kits that we would like to see come back again. So the first one I want to bring up, Paul, is the one that I really, really liked, and I've already mentioned on this podcast once, is Real Racing Club de Santander.
Yeah. The
one that we made for them with the inspiration from the 1988 kit, which was a Maber kit with Tekka as the sponsor. Tekka, as you know, you'll probably find a bit more familiar with Real Madrid during the 90s. I think it's a washing machine or a dishwasher maker, if I remember rightly. It's a white goods appliance manufacturer.
Definitely white goods, yeah.
Totally white goods. But I tell you what, that kit in the long sleeves was like, I can't claim to see it in the flesh. I can't claim to even appreciate it whilst I was alive, because I wasn't alive. But looking back, looking at how cool that kit is with sort of like the green pattern going all the way down the sleeves, and having the cuffs in full green as well with a proper white shirt. And this was when Maber as well was at its absolute pomp. You know, they were the manufacturer for Racing Santander. There was a couple of other clubs in Spain as well, but most notably Barcelona. And they had like Maradona wearing Maber kits. They had Gary Lineker, Mark Hughes, you know, all these top world-class strikers wearing Maber shirts. And it was just a great time for them, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, I think I've given a peek behind the curtain before when we record these. I tend to have pictures up that, you know, I obviously I make notes and I'm old fashioned. I write them down pen and paper whenever I'm doing any research for anything. But one of the things that I really like whenever we have a topic we want to discuss is I just get loads of pictures of the time, of the era and stuff. And I'm looking at some of these pictures of the kits that you mocked up from this past week. Outstanding work, by the way, on your part, but this Racing one is particularly eye-catching, as you say. The design of it is it's simplistic, but it's got the right balance on it. If I'm honest with you, because it's in that long sleeve, do you know what it looks like? You ever think of like, is it when it's Grand National or Cheltenham Week or whenever there's any horse racing on in the newspaper, they have a picture of like what the jockey's wearing. It kind of looks like, if you put a little green hat above that, I'd be like, oh yeah. You know? But no, it's,
there was a couple like that.
Yeah,
the Mirandes kit was a bit like that as well, because back then as well, you know, Mirandes were I think they were a Tercera Federación club, you know, 4th or 5th division if I remember rightly, but they just had a plain red shirt. But actually, when we updated it came out with this. It was kind of like a Lions shirt, you know, like the Lions rugby kits, where it was like long sleeve, red all the way down to the cuff, big white collar. And you're absolutely right. There is something to a simple kit, which I think when we think about retro, we don't necessarily associate retro with simplicity, do we? We think of the 90s of being quite bold, bright, brash.
Yeah,
you know, really, you know, patterns and, you know, Power Rangers and all those kind of things. You know, I mean, it's simplicity is not what we tend to think, but there is a beauty to having a clean white shirt, as they say.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, and the accent on the green, it's just that nice sort of like, it's got that sort of darkness to it, but it's sharp. It contrasts well, and what a fantastic collar as well that it's got. It's like V-neck, but with an overturned collar. Brilliant. Right, yeah. So if you've not had a look at that, have a look at it. In fact, just go on to the socials and browse through all the kits and tell us what your favourite is.
Also, fun fact, from a Racing Santander point of view, I think it wasn't that kit in particular. It was a couple of seasons beforehand. I think it was an away shirt where it was more on the side rather than in the centre of the shirt. But it was actually the first time that a Spanish football club had a sponsor on the shirt in a professional game. So I think a few clubs have done it in like friendlies or like when they've gone on tours to America or something. But they sort of like relax the rules. And, you know, Spain as a country is very, very traditionalist, and that does eat into the football as well. Yeah. So during the 80s, when there was this sponsorship boom in, Serie A and in what was Division 1 in England at the time, you know, Spain reluctantly kind of like went, well, I don't say reluctantly, they firmly said, no, we're not doing that. We don't want to, you know, taint the game with sponsorships and make it commercialized. It's about the football. Eventually, when that was released, and Racing Santander, I think it was in November or December 1986, I want to say, and they got Teca on the front of the shirt. That was the first time that we had a sponsor in professional Spanish football. So again, I think there's also quite a nice uniqueness to, you know, that shirt as well, being, you know, one of our favorites that we'd like to see a comeback, because it's got a story behind as well. You can hook onto that as an individual and as a viewer.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some. I'm looking through the list here as well. I mean, they all evoke different emotions. I mean, I'm gonna lose hours of my day here browsing some of these, but
which was your favourite one?
Do I have a favourite?
You have a favourite.
If we're looking at from the Segunda shirts that you've done, The Racing one's up there, but I do like the Malaga one with the boldness of the stripes and the white sleeves. I haven't really ever seen too many bad A-Bar shirts. I like the A-Bar one. The Cadiz one stands out to me for quite a unique design. Very that is quite early 90s. I don't know how you'd even describe the patterns on it. It's kind of like the shoulders have got like it's almost a tessellation, isn't it, across both shoulders, and then panel.
Well, it was based on their I think it was their 1993 kit, and if I remember right, the manufacturer was something like Eris or Erio or something like that. Basically, nondescript manufacturer. It's not a Nike, it's not an Adidas, it's not a a Puma or something like that. It's its own brand, and it's really, really sort of like brash, isn't it? But what I really like is and what a lot of clubs during the 90s in Spanish football did was they were sponsored by the local municipality. They weren't they weren't all sponsored by white goods manufacturers or other appliance builders. They were sponsored by the local authorities, and it's the same with the Malaga shirt that we see sort of like behind me. It's got the Malaga sponsor. A stranger one maybe would be the Atletico Madrid shirt that had Marbella on the front of it. These are the kind of things I'm talking about. And then Cadiz have got Cadiz written across the front of it, but it's kind of like written in that. Again, to go back to the 90s, do you remember what was it called? Was it Free Willies or something like that? It was like a beach hut in Newquay. I want to say Free
that
Willies.
Is too niche for me to know, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to dig it out now and show it. But basically, it used to be like a bumper sticker. If you used to go to, it was like a surf shack in Newquay, and it used to be like on everyone's bumper sticker. I'll have to dig it out and send it to you. But it's kind of in that style that evokes, hey, come to Cadiz. We've got palm trees. Look how jazzy we are, type thing. And that was the idea behind it. You're going touring around the country. You want everyone to come to Cadiz.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I can see it. It's like it's not quite abstract, is it? It's a bit like the what's the logo? Was it Miro, the artist that did the España? No, he did the España '82, didn't he? But the old
'82,
think of the old RFEF design where it said España underneath, but it was like written in like scratch lettering. It's kind of like that, isn't it? Another one that really there's two more that I do think definitely warrant. To be honest with you, they all warrant a mention. But the Granada one I really like, based on the old Kelme shirt with the collar. I mean, basically anything that's got the Kelme paw prints down, I'm there for it. The Zaragoza shirt, it's a classic design, the white with the rings around the sleeves.
Absolutely, and they could have done so many of them as well. Even the away shirt would have been beautiful too. If you remember the black and yellow, not quite Bumblebee, but sort of like really thick, wide stripes with the, I think it's Picotin, isn't it? The sponsor.
Yeah.
And if any fan base needs cheering up this season, it's definitely Real Zaragoza fans. So if you can at least get them a really nice retro kit, it might take some of the pain off.
I like the Leonesa shirt, although it reminds me of like a motor racing type shirt, like like a Formula One pit.
Speedway
wall member would wear. Yeah, it's just like and then the Mirandez one looks like a rugby shirt from like Six Nations or what. I mean, I'm not a rugby fan, so I'm presuming Six Nations is the name of the tournament that they
like a Wales shirt or something like that.
Yeah. I know we've not mentioned the ones you've done from the top flight yet, but I'm going there. And the Madrid one again, Kelme paw prints. Now you see that one I like because not only did I have that one, and I just love kits. I'm not necessarily a Real Madrid fan, and I was 5 at the time, so fuck off. But like, I had the away one, the purple one, so it's just like the colours were inverted. But at the bottom end, it had like a bit of a pattern just on the front towards the stomach, which I would, if they were having a retro kit, I'd want that purple one just because that just reminds me of when I was, 5 or 6 year old, just running around playing football and
That
on holiday.
that was a big thing, wasn't it, in the 90s, where they just randomly, like, if I look over my shoulder, if you are watching on YouTube, you'll see that I've got a Spain shirt from 1995. You can't actually see it, but that's also got sort of like the so there's two logos, isn't there, for the Spanish Football Federation. There's the crest, which is like, let's go for some tea underneath the crest type thing. But then there's also like the really cool, here's what some hip guys designed for us in the 90s as like an alternative, RDFA badge. And that's kind of like, I want to say it's like emblazoned. Is emblazoned the right word, or printed or pressed or something? But you can see the outline of it in those kits. And that again was a big feature of football shirts in the 90s, wasn't it? And
it was, wasn't it? Think back to that. When I was saying before about when there was the bespoke kits, so you had often the club crest would be in the pattern of the fabric, wasn't it? And I can remember, was it? I don't want to really mention them. It's basically a swear word in my house, but Manchester United, didn't they have a kit that was like Old Trafford was the pattern, like an aerial shot of the, yeah. I know City had around about 97, the brother kit that we had when King Clancy signed before we moved to Kappa, that had the City badge stitched into the fabric with the word City emblazoned on it. It was an Umbro kit. That was the thing back then, and you never get that anymore. Patterns in the fabric, or like, I'm sure one of the Real Madrid home shirts was like, it looked from a distance, it looked plain white, and then when you're up close, you could see that it just said Real Madrid, Real Madrid, Real Madrid, over and over in, like, whatever contrasting stitches that were on the fabric. Don't get that anymore.
No, you don't. You used to also get a lot of shirts that had like the club badge. Like if you had stripes in it, I'd suddenly have the club badge just like subtly printed within the thread in the same sort of color, like you say. But yeah, big feature in the 90s, that one. And that kit for Real Madrid is, there was a lot of, you can't really go wrong with Real Madrid kits, and
it's hard to get a white shirt wrong, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And they're so associated with Adidas now. I think they're into something like, is it almost 30 years or something like that they've been with Adidas, sort of like since the mid, or maybe it is 30 years this year, actually. Be 1996, I think it was, that they turned over to Adidas. So again, I'm not saying it's boring, but a change in kit manufacturers, you're usually quite a good rule of thumb for having a bit of excitement in India. And I think Barcelona also fall into this with Nike, which is possibly why we reminisce so nicely about the Kelme Real Madrid shirts and the Hummel Real Madrid shirt as well, or the Kappa or Maber Barcelona shirts, because we've had them other manufacturers for so long. It's just kind of like, right, well, how many versions of a Nike kit can we see with, Blaugrana or white on it? It's just like, which is maybe why the away kits are usually a little bit more exciting. But yeah, certainly back then that kit, and I think you've already sort of hit the nail on the head. Rule of thumb for the retro weekend, La Liga, I'm now addressing you directly. If there is a Kelme kit which is coming back but has a different manufacturer, such as Adidas or Nike or whatever, they have to keep the Kelme paw print. I don't care what kind of copyright infringement or which dickhead in a boardroom in Germany or America says no, we can't do that. Just redline it. That is a non-negotiable. It is happening because it looks spectacular.
Yes, yeah. To be honest with you, I know obviously you've just mentioned there that Adidas have got the long association now with Real Madrid, and I totally understand that. But they've not had, they've had great kits, obviously, but they've not had their best kit since the Kelme days. So no Kelme, no party really. The Celta kit, I just want to move on now because this one is not a Kelme kit. I think when it originally was made was an Umbro kit. If I'm right in thinking this is like the Euro Celta one with the dark blue paneling over the shoulders. Really like that. Citroen was the sponsor, I think, at the time, wasn't it? So another one you've gone with is just a plain front with the blue shoulder panels, but they also had another one that had that was very similar, but had a bigger color, and I think at the time did it have a red stripe. It was basically like one of the England shirts at the time, but it was in blue.
It had the collar, didn't it?
Yeah. I know that at the start of this I said I don't like templates, but that was a template where they'd used a different color, but it looked much better as a Celta kit than it did as an England kit. Anyway, gotta say that the the Espanyol and the Osasuna kits, brilliant, both of them that you've used there. But the one that really stands out for me is the Real Sociedad one, which obviously had the massive logo, and I'm sure we mentioned this kit when we did the kits episode. Was that like episode 3 or something? Episode 4. It was a Kelme special that we did, wasn't it? And I don't remember whether this was a Kelme kit itself, but we were talking about the time when sponsors were unnecessarily large on the front of the shirts, and you've got this lovely blue and white striped Real Sociedad shirt, and then there's the big panel, isn't it? Is it Craft Auto?
Craft
Auto, big red box, and just completely contrasting with the color scheme.
Yeah, I think the rival to Craft Auto on the Real Sociedad shirt will be the I think it was Canforsor. I can't quite remember the name of the sponsor, but if you'll be able to spot it straight away. It's the Cordoba shirt, and it used to be this giant red box. Like I kid you not, going from sort of like above the chest line down to the waist. It was like, and the thing is, if they'd made it sort of like blend into the shirt, you'd be forgiven for thinking, yeah, okay, fair enough. But this was a big red box on a green and white shirt. It's just like, what the fuck's going on? But I completely agree with you there. And Real Sociedad for a very, very long period of time didn't really deviate away from the same designs, just subtle differences. And it was with them. It wasn't a Kelme shirt. It was a Store that made them. And basically, if you were a club in northern Spain during the late 80s and 90s, you were sponsored, or your kit manufacturer was Astore, because I think it's from Asturias, if I remember rightly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it does feed into the wider conversation of, Spain used to have a very, very loyal to local kit manufacturing philosophy, where you'd have pockets of the country which would be Astore, you'd have pockets of the country which would be Kelme, which is obviously based down in Elche near Alicante. Or also Luanvi as well, which I think is Valencia. I might not be too sure of that, or maybe in Barcelona as well. So again, you used to have all these kits. Barcelona made my Mabel, Luanvi for the likes of Valencia. You had Real Sociedad with Astore. It was a great time to be a Spanish kit manufacturer, and you don't really see them anymore, do you?
No, yeah, and I feel like we spoke about this in the kit launch episode as well a few weeks back about the locality, and I kind of missed that in a way, having that more local. I mean, I try to buy from, in general, I prefer to use local businesses rather than the big chain stuff. That's just me, wanting to be a good citizen and everything like that. But I think it just has a nice tie-in. On that vein, then, because I know that realistically everybody's expecting me to talk about the Mallorca kit that you've done, and I do really, really like the crossover, because you've essentially used one of the old Spanair kits, which Mallorca have actually did re-release a limited run earlier this season of this very same kit that you've done, so you probably could have saved yourself some effort. But it's similar to the Elche design as well, with the unique sleeves, and I remember on this particular type of kit. So for anyone who's wondering which one I'm on about, it's the one. It was Spanair as a sponsor, and the sleeves were red with a darker shade of red, and then a little bit of black and white, sort of not quite pinstripes, but
brush strokes,
brush strokes, and a big collar. But it was that cut of shirt where like, and you don't get this anymore. This was definitely more of a 90s to 2000, early 2000s things where the actual shirt was, even if you got it in like, you know, small, medium, large, all that sizing really did was define the length of the shirt, because the width of the shirt was always the same, like just ridiculously baggy, almost square shaped, and the sleeves were essentially squares as well. So if they do a retro kit and it's of that style, I want to see the really baggy sort of shape to it.
I have a theory about this, because I would go as far to say that I think our generation was the first generation that, you know, truly embraced football shirts as you were going about. So again, you know, when I speak about, you know, my dad and my granddad and things like that, you say, oh, you know, what football shirts did you have when you grew up? He said, oh, I had, you know, maybe one. People didn't buy football shirts back then. You didn't have replica shirts. Whereas I think when we got to this era in sort of like the late 80s and early 90s, people were buying football shirts forever. And like you say, you got used to a certain kind of fit. And now that we're really old and we're adults, and, you know, I won't lie to you, listeners, I'm a little bit heavier than I was when I was 15. You kind of look back at that and say, well, we all don't fit into muscle fit shirts anymore. Or like you say, here's a player issue, which is, you know, designed to wrap around Mo Salah. I'm not being funny. I'm not Mo Salah. Do you know what I mean? I sit at a desk 8 hours a day and type on a computer, and I, you know, could I be healthier? Of course I could, but I like a Guinness on a Friday. It is what it is. So, you know, the beauty of these kind of football shirts is not only the nostalgia element of it, it's just a bit more flattering as well, I think. So again, I'd really like to see sort of the bagginess come back into it, because that is the one thing I will say about some of the retro kits that I've either bought or that I've seen, is that when I've then gone and tried them on, they're retro kits in design, but they are modern kits in fit, and not a massive fan on that. I had the Malaga one from a couple of years ago, which had the Tivoli sponsor on it. Beautiful kit. I even went and got it in an XL just to be safe but sorry. Made me feel like I was a 10, and then I cried for about an hour. Do you know what I mean? So we need to make sure we get that back.
Yes, absolutely. I'm thinking probably another kit that I just want to call out that's from your design that I probably would most like to see, and that's the Valencia one that you've done, because that is it a total 90 Nike batch sort of type of design, or that kind of, or maybe a little bit earlier?
So I think it's the first Total 90 design. So if you remember, there was 2 eras of Total 90, wasn't there? There was the first era, which was like the first time you saw a Nike tick on the boot, and then there was the second era where they embraced the 90. They made a circle, which was kind of like in the passing part of your foot. So I think in 2002, this one was. That's that one, and I think that's better because it had that sort of, you know, similar to here. It's got those dark accents in it.
Yeah,
and it was still the Toyota sponsor, but then the one that was after that in 2004, 2005 was when you've got that what's being remade now by, annoyingly, teams that weren't sponsored by Nike at the time have now got Total 90 kits, and that's a massive ick for me. I'm talking to you, Chelsea. But yeah, that one was that one. But I think with this one, you have to have the Toyota sponsor, or the Teramitaka Benidorm sponsor on it as well, maybe. But there's so many.
And Valencia kits, I get, you know, it's always going to be a white shirt with a black sort of accent on it, but I like it when it's got a bit of orange on it as well. I just think that's really cool. So yeah, I think that's probably the one. I mean, they're all really good, and I'd recommend anybody who's not seen the 42 different kits that you've done. You've done Segunda and Primera, haven't you, so far?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you plan to
so far. Do we dare to go into Primera Federación? I know they're not going to be involved, but imagine the research that's going to go into finding 20 clubs that mainly play non-league. But I suppose to finish, Paul, what I'd really like to ask you on this one is, you know, we're obviously very much caught up in the wind of the retro weekend, and we're all for it, and it's going to be great. I think you've kind of touched on it already in our conversation. It pains me to say this, but this is a commercialization, marketing gimmick potentially, which is going to be pointed at, let's call a spade, mucho dinero.
Yeah.
That is the sad part of it, isn't it? We're not going to see retro ticket prices, are we?
that would be that would be amazing, but no, that won't happen. You're right, it is a marketing exercise, but look, it goes on. I think about other sports that do this. So ice hockey. So in the UK, obviously we've got the Elite League, which is elite probably only in name. I don't want to be too disrespectful there, but the standard is not as high as other parts of Europe, and certainly a far cry from several divisions in the north of America. But they do retro weekends every season around about March time. So my local ice hockey team, Manchester Storm, were huge in the 90s and used to fill the arena in town, set the record for having the largest attendance at an ice hockey match in the UK. It might have even been a European attendance as well at one point for 17 and a half.
Got to give it its proper name.
Well, I call it the MEN, but I also know it's the 9X because it was originally 9X, but it's the MEN. But some people, I don't even know what it's called now. It's been like the Phones for You Arena or AO.
Yeah, I think it's the AO Arena now, but I couldn't tell you. Yeah, but, it's always going to be the MEN to me.
That's it. So to go back on topic with that, this was a time in the 90s where there was like 17,500 people turning up to watch ice hockey, and the team were only around for like 7 years back then. But they had some great kits, and then the team came back 2017, I think. The franchise was reborn, and ever since, as part of the thing that the Elite League do, the Storm will release a new jersey that they'll only really wear for like 1, maybe 2 games a season. And it's always based on like a classic design. So it's as we're at the time of recording, it's this weekend that they are doing their retro weekend, funnily enough, and they've based their home shirt or home jersey on the shirt from, I should call it a jersey because it's a jersey in hockey. Or it's actually technically a uniform, I believe. On the one that the team had in 1997-98, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, I want to buy that, but because they don't play at the arena now, they play out of a small rink that has about like 2,000 seat capacity or something. It's like you have to go in person only, and you have to go between like 4 and 6 on Friday to get one, and that's it, exclusive, but it works well every season. They always sell out of these retro ones. In the NHL, they have the Winter Classic, which is not necessarily the same because what do they call them, kits, and the uniforms that the teams wear in the Winter Classic is not necessarily always a retro one, but it's like retro inspired, like a modern take on classic things, and that always sells really well.
Yeah. The Americans are really good at that, aren't they? Because the MLS do something similar too. And I suppose, like you say, we kind of mentioned before we came on to record, I think, in terms of European football, there's only really Spain and probably Serie A that would actually get away with this. I think if you tried to do the same in the UK, you probably wouldn't get the same uptake or of interest in it that way. And I think it's because you associate the stars with it, the kits, the nostalgia look at it and things like that, wouldn't you?
There's definitely
that kind of perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, English football, it's been stretched in all different directions. So obviously now, for the last 10 years, it's been very lucky to have some really big name. Well, most of the big name players in European football have played. It's the most globally, commercially successful league in the world. But with that, the match going experience is not really one that I think necessarily. I think if anything, it's getting further away from being one that's attended by local and fans who are around to appeal that retro image to, because there's that many and it's going to sound like, rude, and I don't mean to sound rude here, but there are that many tourists at Premier League games now that the fans that would want a retro shirt have basically been priced out. And when you've got, star after star making, the Premier League doesn't really necessarily need or want to have retro shirt designs. Whereas I think you're right in singling out La Liga and Serie A. I mean, Serie A in particular, Italian football in the 90s, all the big names there, and obviously you had Football Italia and everything on the telly, the whole aesthetic that went with it. I mean, they just had better kits then, didn't they, as well?
It
less
itself,
sponsors.
It lends itself to it.
Yeah, it's a natural fit. Like, if the Italian League was to do a retro weekend like this, like, people would, they would just be... they'd make an absolute killing. It'd probably be, they'd probably make enough money off selling the merchandise that it'd probably take a few clubs out of financial trouble, wouldn't it? And La Liga's got such an iconic cultural football heritage that it can draw upon, that I think it does it better than other leagues. So yeah,
and I think the big thing to take from it, and probably what La Liga have maybe recognised here, and let's call Javier Tebas an astute businessman as he is. A lot of La Liga clubs are doing this on their own steam anyway. Malaga last season played. I think the last 2 times they released a retro kit, one time they wore it was they did a Legends game for celebrating an anniversary for the club. So they had like Ruud van Nistelrooy come back, and a few other players as well, and wore that shirt. Last season they played in the sort of like Kelme remake they did in a league game. So I think there's a few teams that are doing that as well. So I think this is probably an opportunity for La Liga thinking, well, we can make something of this, and it brings a lot of attention to the league, which it is getting starved of. I think I was speaking to somebody on Twitter the other day about sort of like 2015 was kind of like the last time that we actually saw sort of like the very, very best of La Liga in terms of like the star quality, the competitive nature of having 3 teams, all finishing within 3 points of each other or something like that at the top of the league. And then after that, it's kind of been maybe a bit of a downward spiral as the Premier League. I suppose what I'm trying to say is it's the closest that we've had La Liga to eclipsing the Prem, and then the Prem's just supercharge itself with billionaires and petro states, and it's buggered off into the distance and left everyone else behind. So I think it's a great opportunity for them to do something to basically get the focus back on La Liga and market itself to a wider audience, which I think it desperately starts to need to do more of. And we could get into a whole other hour of talking about TV deals and all that jazz, but
that's the thing. Like, we really do need to wrap up for time on this point, but you're absolutely right. And I think this comes at a time that La Liga really needs it, because there's been quite a few people, we have a lot of people who we talk to who love Spanish football, but things in the last 18 months have kind of changed, like, TV channel disappearing, the marketing not really being there. This could draw a lot of people back in that had kind of either lost access or lost a little bit of interest in it. And we say this as we're not, we are advocates for Spanish football. It's what we love. It's what we want to see. We want the game to grow. We want the community around it to grow. But the last 12 to 18 months haven't been great on that front. If anything, the audience seems to have shrank. Maybe that's just how it seems, and I think that has been down to some strange decisions on how the league wants to raise its appeal or market itself. And I say it appears to have shrunk, like, within Europe, right? I know that they're focusing on trying to grow, certainly in the US, as we've touched on before, about the many attempts they make to play a game of football over there. But I feel like it has missed a lot of tricks and hasn't really didn't really ever capitalize as much as it perhaps could have done on the, like you say, you roll it back 10, 11, 12 years to where it was at there. I mean, we still love it and we'll still watch Spanish football, but it's kind of like we know that it's a great league. It's just not getting the attention that it really deserves. And hopefully this brings a few people back into the sphere of influence with regards to La Liga. But yeah, look, I could spend another hour talking on that. So I'll let you let you wrap up there.
Easily, yeah. No, I think you're absolutely spot on, and it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully, we get a confirmation soon of some plans that must be due to come out soon. They can't let this hype eke away. But would it be the most Spanish football thing for them to do that they just let the lull go and then they bring it back up again? I don't know, but
it wouldn't surprise me now if all this hype and this rumor, it's like just pure coincidence that clubs are doing it and there's actually no master plan. I mean, it would be tragically funny, wouldn't it?
Peak Tebas it would be, but yes, we shall watch with interest, and obviously we'll keep you up to date on all our social medias and all that jazz if we do get confirmation of it. If you do want more from El Partido as well, do head over to our Patreon page if you want to get episodes early and ad-free. You cannot put a price on ad-free listening, but we will. It's £2 a month. You'd also get extra bonus content there as well, such as Super Sebasta, which is our quiz show. We do Q&As. We've also got Revista del Partido, which is our quarterly magazine that we are releasing hopefully later this month as well. Or if you fancy just reading some more of our work, head over to the Substack. We do 2 articles a week at the moment, one on a Monday, which is our opinion column, and then one on a Wednesday, which is El Final, which is our 5 things you should have watched this weekend in Spanish football. So very much thank you for going over there and subscribing if you can. So for now, I'll say thank you very much, Paul, for joining me this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk all things retro weekend and football kits with you.
Oh, thanks again, Nick. It's always a joy.
Absolutely. And I'll say thank you to you guys at home as well. Your support is always appreciated. But until next time, we'll see you soon. Hasta luego.